Hey everyone, Mark here with Delvr. 5 years ago, if you would have asked me if I would have been playing on a digital rig, I would have probably laughed at you. As a guitar player growing up, amps are the primary source of being able to share tones and sounds. Your favorite musicians, the things that your teachers taught you, it's always the thing that you emulated. Having a pedal collection was always one of my favorite things. Going digital has been one of the most interesting journeys I've taken as a guitarist. For me in the past, there's been a lot of gear collection, from having these distortions, these overdrives, this octave pedal, this delay, this specific reverb, multiple reverbs. I always played shows, and every time I played a show, I loved to have just that ambient kind of texture, that reverberating sound. Everything like that was always something that was really fascinating to me. So obviously, I collected a lot of gear. Moving into buying the Helix has been a really weird experience. It made the pedal board journey a little less of an adventure because you don't need to collect the cool pedals. You don't need to have the huge 2 pedal boards of gear sitting on the ground, right? All of the stomping now goes away. So in some fashion, the digital move has been kind of clean. Having to use 15 different sounds if you wanted, obviously that just having them there, I think, is always what we love when we're looking for tone or searching for the right sound. And so being able to play something and you click a button, all of a sudden you get 10 pedals turning on and off at once, or you get these 2 reverbs being able to hit instantly. I think that's always fascinating because now you can control your sound more. Amps were always a big part of my collection. I loved touring with my orange stack. I loved when I got my Black Star head. I loved even having my PV30 for all of my blues gigs or my smaller venues when I was traveling around. Those kinds of things always offered a different kind of sound and a different variable that you could control given what you were doing, how you were playing, what kind of show you were there. If you needed a bigger, more powerful amp, you had those options. It's really, really interesting to see the modeling aspect that the Helix offers. It's interesting to see that if you do pair it with an FR speaker, you get, through the community or through a pack that you can buy, sounds that replicate the orange stack, for instance, or the Black Star or the Marshall, right? All of these amps that we've grown up to love, you can put that over that sound, and then all of a sudden everything is colored. And I would tell you, it's within a very, very, very small margin of error too. To the naked ear, you wouldn't be able to tell, especially if you're thinking of like using it in a studio setting. I think once you get post done, it's gonna be really hard to tell the difference. A lot of that is what deterred most of us as guitar players or musicians in the past from buying a lot of this modeling gear earlier, is that it couldn't live up to the hype of being able to deliver clarity in the tone or clarity in the playing. I think what's super interesting about what the Helix offers is the vast array of sounds that you can get from this. I'm somebody who really loves reverbs and delays and distortion. And for me, it was always collect this, find this, can I get this, does this sound work kind of situation. And it's kind of nice not having to spend $200-300 on a pedal that you might not use. You're not sure if it's gonna work the right way. It's not gonna be something that messes up the chain that you've already got. I've had that happen so many times where you get this amazing distortion pedal or this really cool overdrive, you add it into the other 6 or 7 pedals you've got going on, and all of a sudden it just isn't really working. It's not doing what you wanted it to do once the chain's enabled and everything's moving. The Helix offers so many choices that it's undeniable that it's gonna save you money. You know, it's undeniable that you can test all of these things too. And you could even think of it like a way to improve your physical pedal board setup as well. If you are not wanting to make the plunge like I did, where you're selling a bunch of stuff or just getting rid of things that you don't need, you could keep those and you could use this as a way to just kind of stress test if these sounds are gonna work well together. You've got your delays, you've got your reverbs, you've got octaves, distortions, overdrive, right? You've got so many different choices, even the newer effects, where you've got like a particle or a trail or some kind of like bit crush or a synth sound, all of these really cool things that I would have to search for from a boutique standpoint to meet my needs, I now have, and this device gets constant updates with constant new pedals and sounds being added to it. So the bang for the buck value with this thing is really, really, really amazing. One thing to think about is if you are a touring musician versus a studio musician, or if you're kind of in that point where you're doing both. From a touring perspective, think about less gear depending on the venue that you're playing, right? Most of the times we go there, we know as guitarists, even if we don't want to admit it, yes, having a 4x12 feels really nice. Yes, having the bigger amp sounds real good, but is it necessary by the time the miking and stuff is done? The answer is no. I mean, in short, a 30-watt tube amp can power most of the places that most gigging musicians I know play. Granted, maybe it doesn't deliver the tone or the sound that you want. So think about maybe saving yourself the gear movement when you are wanting to bring something like that. If you have a smaller piece of gear that you can use that does emulate the right tones and it syncs up to front of house perfectly and it delivers the tone and the sound that you want, I think that's gonna also save us some load-in time at the end of the day. If you're a studio musician and you want all of the things, which I don't know, which one of us don't want those, if that's something that you're looking at doing, it gives you all of those things to play with, which I think is fascinating. You can set it right up in a rack mount, have it just right there for any artist that you've got to plug into, and all of a sudden you guys are just experimenting with tones and sounds and seeing what works well for the album that you're making. For those of you that were worried about switching to digital, I think this could be a good conversation and some knowledge for you to understand that it just gives you more variety. It gives you the options and they're comparable. Obviously 10 years ago, if you asked me about this, the answer is no way. It didn't sound like what we wanted. It couldn't meet and it couldn't perform. Playing the guitar didn't feel a certain way. Now it's harder to use that as an excuse because it is getting very, very, very close. Albeit, I'll say there's a couple things that I do not think they have yet, but when you're talking about looking at something from an objective view and going, does this fit the criteria? I think the answer is yes. And so if you are wanting to check this out, definitely get on the forum, see, what device you want and what's gonna fit your needs. For me, I picked the Helix because it does give more choices for sounds, which is what I need at the end of the day. If you're interested in any of the gear that we use here at Delvr, or you want to see what we're doing to combine sounds, feel free to use the Amazon affiliate link down in the description. Be sure to check out our live streams over at twitch.tv/DelvrMusic, and hopefully we'll see you there.